Have you ever caught yourself tapping your foot and singing along to a catchy melody, completely unaware that you are celebrating a tragedy? The 1960s gave us some of the most iconic, toe-tapping pop and rock anthems of all time. But beneath those bright harmonies and smiling television performances, a sinister reality was often hiding in plain sight. We are about to uncover the 10 upbeat 1960s hits with dark backstories that'll change how you listen. Before we pull back the curtain on these twisted tales, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the hidden secrets of pop culture. You might want to sit down for this, because the upbeat songs you grew up loving were actually masking tales of unspeakable heartbreak, fatal premonitions, and chilling crimes. Let's dive into the dark side of the decade of love. Number 10. Bad Moon Rising, Creedence Clearwater Revival. That infectious, bouncy, swamp pop rhythm that makes everyone want to jump on the dance floor hides a message that should actually have you running for the hills. Released in 1969, this track is heavily rotated at family reunions and summer barbecues, with its vibrant melody fooling generations of listeners. But if you stop dancing for a second and truly listen to John Fogerty's singing, you will realize you are not celebrating a sunny weekend. You are grooving to the apocalypse. Fogerty penned the track after watching the classic 1941 film The Devil and Daniel Webster, specifically a scene that involved a devastating hurricane sweeping away everything in its path. The song is a literal prophecy of the end of times, detailing earthquakes, lightning, overflowing rivers, and impending ruin. The lyrics warn of a terrible rage and the end of all good things, painting the picture of a world on the brink of total collapse. The contrast between the incredibly upbeat instrumental and the doomsday lyrics is nothing short of genius, creating a bizarre auditory illusion. It is the musical equivalent of smiling while the world burns down around you. But while this song only predicted a fictional disaster, our next track predicted a real-life tragedy that would change music forever. Number 9. Dead Man's Curve by Jan and Dean. Surf rock in the early 60s was all about carefree youth, sun-drenched beaches, and the thrill of underground street racing. With its smooth vocal harmonies, honking horns, and the sounds of screeching tires, this 1964 track felt like the ultimate high-speed teenage fantasy. The song details a fierce drag race between a Corvette and a Jaguar along a notoriously dangerous stretch of road in Los Angeles, culminating in a violent crash. It was supposed to be just a cautionary tale wrapped in a pop melody, but the narrative quickly became a disturbing reality. Just 2 short years after the song's release, in 1966, Jan Berry himself was driving his Corvette Stingray through the very same neighborhood. In a stomach-churning turn of events, he crashed his car at a terrifying speed on the exact same stretch of road they had sung about. The accident was catastrophic. Berry was left in a coma for months, suffering permanent brain damage and partial paralysis that altered the course of his life and career forever. What started as a fun, bouncy tune about car culture morphed into a haunting, self-fulfilling premonition. The upbeat melody now serves as a grim reminder of how fragile life can be. And speaking of hiding grim trauma behind a catchy facade, the music industry was about to perfect the art of smiling through the pain. Number 8. Tears of a Clown, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. The second those iconic circus-sounding horns and the energetic Motown backbeat kick in, it is impossible not to smile. This 1967 classic is a masterclass in joyful musical arrangement, tailor-made to make you feel good. Yet the brightness of the shimmering strings and perfectly choreographed vocals is a deliberate lie. Smokey Robinson used this funhouse melody to explore the depths of excruciating psychological isolation. Inspired by the classic Italian opera Pagliacci, The song explores the despair of a man who must perform, entertain, and make the world laugh while he is bleeding on the inside. It is about the crushing pressure of keeping up appearances when your entire world is falling apart. The lyrics paint the picture of someone who is the center of attention, adored by crowds, but weeping alone in the dark, unable to share their true pain with anyone. What makes this song truly dark is how perfectly it mirrors the entertainment industry itself, a ruthless machine that demands constant happiness and spectacle, forcing performers to swallow their own trauma for the sake of the show. The music tricks you into cheering for a man's agony, but while Smokey's clowns suffered in silence, another man's bitterness was about to take a deadly turn, hidden inside one of the most catchy country pop tunes of the decade. Number 7. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. Kenny Rogers in the first edition. You have probably clapped along to the infectious country groove of this 1969 track. It has a laid-back, almost saloon-like energy that immediately makes you want to sing the chorus. But if you listen closely to the words coming out of Kenny Rogers' mouth, you will realize this is no happy campfire tune. The song is told from the perspective of a war veteran who is returned home completely paralyzed and bound to a wheelchair. While the jaunty tune plays in the background, he watches his wife, Ruby, put on her makeup and get dressed to go out for the night in search of other men, leaving him entirely helpless. The humiliation and psychological pain the protagonist endures is bleak enough, but the song takes an even darker dive into the black. Amidst the toe-tapping rhythm, the man quietly confesses that the pain and rage are so absolute that if he could only move his hands, he would get his gun and take her life. It is an absolutely terrifying juxtaposition. The listener is bobbing their head to the beat of a man swallowed by the trauma of war, contemplating a crime of passion while suffering in a state of physical and emotional paralysis. The fact that it became a massive smash hit proves how easily we can ignore tragedy if the beat is good enough. And that darkness was about to get a whole lot more disturbing. Don't take your love to town. Number 6. He Hit Me, and It Felt Like a Kiss, The Crystals. The legendary Phil Spector wall of sound defined the 1960s girl group era with sweeping melodies, rich orchestrations, and vocal harmonies that felt like a warm embrace. When the Crystals released this track in 1962, it carried all the sonic innocence of that golden period of pop music. But the glossy facade completely collapses the moment you pay attention to what the girls are actually singing. The song is a deeply disturbing attempt to justify and romanticize domestic abuse. Written by the iconic songwriting duo Carole King and Jerry Goffin, the lyrics were sparked by a real-life situation involving their babysitter, the singer Little Eva. Upon discovering that she was being battered by her boyfriend, they asked why she did not leave him. Her response was that the physical assaults were proof of his love. Rather than calling this out, the industry turned the trauma into a consumable pop record, where a woman joyfully sings about being struck as a sign of affection. The stomach-turning irony feels even heavier when you look behind the scenes. The song's producer, Phil Spector, was notoriously known for his controlling and violent behavior, and decades later would end up behind bars for a terrible crime. It is a chilling artifact from a time when severe mistreatment could be packaged as a sweet love song. And while toxicity hid in recording studios, a different kind of darkness was quietly consuming the mind of one of the decade's biggest idols. Number 5. Runaway by Del Shannon. That unforgettable high-energy keyboard solo, played on a newly invented instrument called the musitron, is one of the most defining sounds of 1961. It is the kind of up-tempo beat that makes you want to snap your fingers, a song that radiated through radios worldwide and made Del Shannon a global star. On the surface, it feels like just another fast-paced teenage heartbreak anthem, but this legendary hit served as a shiny shield for a profound, undiagnosed depression that haunted the singer his entire life. The ache in his voice and the desperation in the lyrics were not just an artistic performance, they were a reflection of the severe isolation Shannon felt inside his own mind. He frequently battled feelings of inadequacy and an internal darkness that stardom could not cure. The upbeat tune masked the fact that its creator was running away from his own demons, a battle he fought in silence for decades. Tragically, the same brilliant mind that composed this energetic melody eventually succumbed to that crushing weight years later when Shannon made the heartbreaking decision to take his own life. The stark contrast between the eternally optimistic legacy of his biggest song and his devastating end is truly gut-wrenching. But while Shannon's demons were internal and quiet, the biggest band in the world was about to craft a perfectly cheerful melody about a very real, remorseless monster. Number 4. Maxwell's Silver Hammer, The Beatles. If you played this 1969 track without listening to a single word, you would swear it was a children's song or a musical comedy number. Driven by a bouncy, vaudeville-style rhythm, hand claps, and anvil sound effects that feel like they belong in an old cartoon, it is arguably one of the most instrumentally cheerful tracks in the entire Beatles catalog. Paul McCartney created an incredibly inviting sonic environment, only to use it as the backdrop for a detailed narrative about a serial killer. The lyrics follow a medical student named Maxwell Edison, who strolls through town, smiling and acting perfectly normal, right before bludgeoning his victims. He attacks his girlfriend, his teacher, and even the judge during his own trial. The band cheerfully sings the catchy chorus while describing lethal assaults. The recording sessions behind this happy song were equally chaotic. The rest of the band despised the track. John Lennon famously dismissed it as granny music, and McCartney's relentless demands for dozens of takes created an unbearably toxic studio environment. The irony is glaring. An upbeat song about a cold-blooded killer was almost responsible for tearing the friendship of the world's most famous band. The fake blood in the Beatles track caused cracks in the band, but on the sunny streets of Hollywood, the spilled blood would be very real. Maxwell is a fool again. Teacher gets Number 3. I Fought the Law, the Bobby Fuller 4. Rockabilly was evolving in the 1960s, and this 1965 burst of energy felt like the perfect rebellious anthem for teenagers driving with the windows down. It features hand claps, vibrant electric guitars, and an undeniable sense of freedom and youthful optimism. When Bobby Fuller sang about breaking the rules with that signature smirk and harmless attitude, nobody could have predicted that the true darkness surrounding this track would arrive just months after it hit the top of the charts. At the absolute peak of the song's success, Bobby Fuller was found lifeless inside his parked car outside his Hollywood apartment. The scene was gruesome and bizarre. He was soaked in gasoline, clutching a hose, and his body was in a state that defied logic. Despite the alarming details, authorities quickly closed the case, calling it a self-inflicted act or a bizarre accident. However, the Hollywood underground whispered a very different story. Rumors quickly surfaced that Fuller had crossed paths with dangerous people, possibly tied to the mob or shady music industry executives, resulting in a brutal reckoning. To this day, the truth has never been officially revealed, leaving the bright, bouncy track as a grim epitaph for a brilliant talent erased in a cruel way. And while the Hollywood mystery remains unsolved, another pop hit was about to turn a highway nightmare into the most singable song of the summer. Number 2. Last Kiss, J. Frank Wilson and the Cavaliers.
Where, oh, where can my baby be?
The unmistakable drum fill, the rhythmic hand claps, and the sweet guitar chords make this 1964 track one of the ultimate prom night classics of the decade. It possesses that innocent, almost angelic sway that made teenagers want to hold each other tight and slow dance under the light of a mirror ball. The melody is so incredibly gentle and catchy that it lulls the listener into a false sense of romantic security. However, if you actually peel back the layers and pay attention to the words being sung with such saccharine sweetness, you will realize that you are not listening to a traditional love song. You are witnessing the excruciating final moments of a fatal disaster. The song details, in a highly visceral and gripping manner, the experience of a young man holding his girlfriend in his arms immediately after a horrific car crash. The lyrics graphically describe the deafening sound of screeching tires, the crunch of twisting metal, and the shattering of glass, followed by the protagonist finding the love of his life terribly injured on the cold pavement. The last kiss of the title is not a romantic late-night goodbye on a front porch, but rather the final breath of a life slipping away tragically in his arms. What makes this infinitely darker is that the song was heavily inspired by a real-world accident that claimed the lives of several teenagers, a localized trauma that sent shockwaves through an entire community. The juxtaposition is frankly disturbing. Millions of people bobbed their heads and smiled to a cheerful beat, entirely unfazed, while the vocalist detailed the horrifying trauma of losing everything on a dark highway. Turning raw, bleeding grief into a highly palatable, easily digestible pop product was the ultimate magic trick of the 1960s music industry. But if this represented real-world trauma turned into profit, our final song showcases what happens when pure, unadulterated musical energy is hijacked by the most dangerous mind of a generation.
She's gone to heaven, so I got to be good.
Number 1. Helter Skelter, The Beatles. If you want to talk about absolute mind-bending contrasts, the most beloved band in the world delivered the most intense, chaotic, and blisteringly raw track of the late 1960s. Released in 1968, this explosion of pure adrenaline is widely regarded by historians as one of the very first seeds of heavy metal. The distorted guitars, the shredding vocals, and the relentless driving drum beat created an uncontrollable energy that leaped out of the speakers. Paul McCartney's intention was completely innocent. He simply wanted to prove that the Beatles could be louder, dirtier, and more aggressive than any other rock band at the time, and he wrote the lyrics entirely about the experience of riding down a spiral fairground slide in Britain. It was supposed to be nothing more than a sonic roller coaster, a turbulent and exciting joyride with no profound meaning or malicious intent whatsoever. But that upbeat, anarchic energy would soon be captured and twisted into the darkest appropriation in the entire history of music. Thousands of miles away in California, an infamous and deeply disturbed figure heard this booming track and absorbed a completely different message. He convinced his followers that the upbeat rock song was not about an amusement park ride at all, but rather a coded signal, a detailed manifesto predicting and encouraging an apocalyptic race war. The title of McCartney's cheerful, chaotic song was adopted as the name of a terrifying ideology that led to a series of gruesome events that shook the world and brutally ended the era of peace and love in the late summer of 1969. The very words that were written to evoke laughter and childish amusement were painted on walls at scenes that defied human comprehension. This vibrant, ahead-of-its-time track now carries the permanent heavy weight of unspeakable tragedy, forever tied to the sudden loss of the decade's innocence. What started as a band's attempt to have a wildly good time in the studio became the official soundtrack to the American Nightmare. Music has this terrifying and magical power to completely trick our brains. We are so easily captivated by a good beat, a vibrant guitar riff, or a soaring chorus that we frequently ignore the absolute monsters hiding right there in the lyrics. These songs prove that the sunniest melody can cast the longest, darkest shadow, and that the upbeat tunes we grew up with might be holding on to grim secrets that we were never truly ready to hear. From now on, every single time you hear a classic hit come on the radio, you are going to find yourself wondering, what are they actually singing about? If this journey through the obscure underbelly of the 1960s completely changed the way you listen to your playlist, drop a comment down below telling me which song shocked you the absolute most. And do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so we can continue uncovering the hidden truths behind the pop culture we love. Keep questioning the things you hear, keep listening closely to the music, and I will see you in the next one.